Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
How you doing, Dad?
It's nice to be back, Steve. We waited in anticipation last week, but nothing happened, so we had to call it off, unfortunately. But hopefully
It
this
was
one will get through.
it was so annoying. It's just internet connections and it just glitching and it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. Um, but we've got round to it this week, and we're actually in Cornwall at the moment, so that's why I'm sort of in a different setting, different location. I can't take credit for any of these pictures behind me. They're all my mother-in-law's wonderful pieces of art. So no one's thinking that I can do any of this, okay? Because I can't. But no, we're having a nice time, and we'll be back home next week. So we'll be back to the usual setting and usual setup. Hopefully, we will still continue to be able to do these. It's just irritating, when we're trying to get these podcasts out and we set it all up ready to go, and then technology fails us. But everyone's very understanding, so we're very grateful for everyone having this patience with us. Um, this week, I thought, we had originally planned to discuss the horse and bridle picture and watch that back, or some highlights back, but I think we're going to save that till when I'm back home and I've got all the equipment back set up. So this week, I thought we would talk about the new picture that you're working on and show some of our listeners and viewers um, the stages that you've been working on, because you've taken some pictures for us at various points in the picture. And I thought it'd be nice for people to see that build up, and we can perhaps talk about how you're finding doing this picture. And
Mhm.
it's always nice for people to see what you're working on. So we showed a sketch a good while ago. It was a few weeks back. So let's show the first picture that you sent me, and
Mhm.
you've isolated specifically what you're working on here. So that you started with the ear, but again, you normally you'd put the background in last, but I think you did this with the horse. I think even that I edited recently,
Mm.
you did them both together as you went along, and you've decided to do that again with this one.
Well, this is very different, where the horse was just a plain background, and I've done that before with other pictures. But I haven't done one quite like this, where there's a lot of foreground and background. And when I looked at the picture, I was so impressed with the photographic reference that I thought, wow, it's a shame not to actually put the lion cub in the setting. So I thought about it for a long while. Do I or don't I? Let's go for it. And when I started off this one, I started with the ear. I did the ear, as you've seen before, and then I worked the colours around it. Now you'll see there's several colours there. There's a colour, there's the green. Now the green started off at that colour at the bottom left of the ear. It's a browny greeny colour actually. It's very unusual. It's Caran d'Ache, this particular one. I can't remember the number, but we'll be giving them out anyway. And the the reason I did that is because I could see the colour coming through. In fact, if you look at the green that I put on, you can see that colour. Um, and it also, of course, affects the colour itself. That's the 165 mainly I put on there, which is a very dark green, with the 168, I believe it is, as well. Now, those combination of those colours are the colours that I thought would work. What looks odd is the area above it at the moment. And what I've done there, I've used grey. Why grey? Well, we had a sand coloured paper, which I thought was a good idea, and it's proved to be perfect for the subject. So I had to find colours that would tone in with that, and the green that I intended to put on. So it was a bit of an experiment at this stage. I thought, am I going to work it? And you'll see as we go on how well this actually does work. But that was the idea. Now, the reason I did this is I wanted to marry the subject, the lion cub, with the background. I wanted to put the two together. See what I mean? It was just a thought of mine. And because it's so intricate, and that background, when you see the pictures we're going to be showing you, how on earth do you do that? Well, it isn't easy. And as I said before, this is my picture. It's one that I'm doing. I'm doing it. It's not really a class picture, and it's never intended to be one as an instructional video. It's more my own feelings and intuitive nature coming out. So the fact that it's my own thoughts coming through, it was impossible to say, you do this, you've got to do that. It wouldn't have worked that way. So what I've done is I've explained as I've gone along why I've done what I've done. And I think you'll find it'll be very interesting for people to have my take on it, really. And I don't spare the horses, as you can see as we go through. I haven't finished the picture yet, but I nearly have. So possibly by next week I might have finished it. I don't know yet. I'm not rushing it. That was not my intention. I'm taking my time, which is a lovely way of doing it, I think.
Absolutely. I'm going to pop up the next picture just so we can see sort of the next stage. So not a little bit further along this one, but you start working on the other ear, and we start to see there's quite a lot of colours actually in the lion, isn't there? There's it's a real different colour palette to what you would perhaps normally expect with a lion.
Absolutely, yeah. And what I wanted to do with this, and again, as we go on, you'll see that change even from what I've done there. I wanted to create the realistic effect you can get with fur, not just put a dark bit there and a light bit there and a brown bit there and a grey bit there. Not that. It wasn't that, and I never did it that way. I did it as I thought of it, and it would be, to people to actually watch me do that would be almost impossible, because I switch pencils all the time. And what happens, Steve, and people might like to understand this, a number pops into my head as I'm doing a section, say the grey on the top of the head. I'm doing the lighter grey, and then I think of a bit of darker grey, and then suddenly I think I need to put a bit of 175 in here. Now, I don't know where this comes from. It's just something instinctively you do. So I put a little 175. Then I thought, well, it's a little fierce, so therefore I bring my colour shaper in and then tone it down a little bit. And then I find as time goes on, it's toned down too much, so I need to bring it back. You get the thought pattern coming in here, you see, and all the time I'm doing this, I'm thinking direction of fur. And I still maintain that, as you can see, but it's coming on, but you can see on the left-hand side, I've deepened the colour in the ear, that very dark colour, and that really stood out. And you can see on the right-hand side, I haven't done that, but I will. So it's all a little bit of see how we go with it.
I can see wisps of base color you've brought out of the ear, away from the ears, and onto the background, the landscape behind as well. You just sort of prepping like, okay, grey is going to be those base colors for either side of the ears.
Yes, the grey is mixed in with the green, although you don't actually see it there. You'll probably see it as we go on. But at this stage, I have to have a lot of confidence in my ability to turn that round, because at the moment you look at it and think, God, that looks in your face, surely that's not going to work. So when you got, I mean, and I have to do this because you're seeing it now, and although I have nearly completed it, and it does look stunning, but you'll see as we go on, when we finally put the last picture up, you'll think, oh, I wish I could see it finished, and that's how I feel. So that,
Well,
but
let's get
so
to not quite the last picture, the second to last picture that we've got to show, which really
and,
brings this animal
and
to
this is a
life.
big jump, isn't it? And you can see now what I was talking about, the top of the head. That's how that's changed, and and the colour on the top has changed. Instead of being grey, we've got a bit of ochre there. Now here is where I changed from the original photographic reference, because although I got the photograph to work from, I wanted to do my own thing. Now that now doesn't look quite the same as it did, but you can see how that is beginning to really come alive now, and how important it is to work the two colours together, the background and the subject together. That now has proved to be its worth, because I put colours in the animal in the background and colours in the background in the animal. I've switched a bit, so you can see a compatibility with the whole thing now. And I was at this stage, I was pretty pleased with it. Especially that mouth is, gosh, I wouldn't put
Yeah,
my hand near that, would you?
the eyes and the mouth seem to be the components that really make the creature come alive. Like, just gives it that life. When you see
Mm,
that, it's suddenly, wow, it's got personality now.
mm. And you notice how dull the colours are surrounding it now. That is again something I deliberately do. I make it strong so that I've got to back it up with the background and the animal. And then the picture we're going to show at the end of this sequence is not quite finished, and I'll explain what I'm be doing with that later. But here we've got the situation where I had a decision to make, really. Do I put the background surround it, or do I put the animal? And before we actually show you what I actually did, you can see that, do I put that background in? Well, I felt that here, and I've started doing it, I've put the outline of the light fur. I've started to do that. And as I did that, then I started building the background up. But I had to do that first, because otherwise you can't rub anything out. So if I'd overdone the background, I couldn't have got rid of some of it to put the fur in. It wouldn't have worked. You've got to put the two together and use the two together, as you will see in the next one. But it's coming alive now, isn't it?
Mm.
But the
What I
one
really
thing,
love is the. Oh, God.
sorry, just before we go on, you see the area on the right-hand side as a light greyish, bluish colour that's coming through. Now, originally, I had green coming out the other side. Then I realised, hang on, what I want to do is go through the animal behind it. See what I mean? So I had to then put that lighter colour there, so it looks as though it actually travels behind. I hope you can understand what I'm saying there. But if it's something that I was very conscious of. It was the same with the grasses. I had to have, if what goes in one end has got to slightly come out the other.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to point out the
Mm,
sort of right hand side of the line here is just so interesting. There's so much like detail, but not detail.
mm.
You've put detail through impressionism, but it's just such an interesting area, and it looks quite hard to actually, because there's no structure. It looks quite hard to build that, but the
Oh yeah,
finished
very.
effect of that is really interesting to look at.
Yes, that's right. So all of these small things I've learned as I've gone along, with all the work I've done, how important it is to go in one end out the other. Otherwise, you have a disjointed. It doesn't look quite right. Even though the original picture didn't have that, I've actually put that in. That's been something I've concocted.
Right, right.
Because a person taking a photograph hasn't got that advantage, has he? He's got to, or he, she, he's got to take the picture as it is.
Yeah,
And whatever's in the background is in the background.
absolutely. So let's. This is the picture that is not quite finished, but it's very nearly there, and you can just see how much more detail there was to still go on that background. How much more there was still to add,
Mm.
um, and
Well,
it just looks amazing.
it's
It
you can
really
see.
doesn't look far off finished.
No, well, the area to the right of the face, if you like, that bit basically is finished. So if you look at that, that's how it's going to look as you come round the body and the feet, because there's a shadow on this that's running across it, and you can see the shadow on the left-hand side. Now that has not been finished yet. I've got to work between the paw, the back paw, which you can see sticking out, and the front paw you can see sticking out. Now there's an area in between that which is light. Now that's got to be filled up, and I've got to bring the background that I've deliberately done so that I have a base. See what I mean? That's why that dark runs all the way along there. It gives it like a framework, and I've got to work my way from that base up to the paw, the back paw, and then down. So it's got to. That's the bit that at the moment has not been done, and I've got to do some thinking about it. But there's a lot of dark going in between there. So that's going to be really interesting to see next week. But then once that's in, and I should be doing that before I actually start the animal, but go back on the animal, then I've got to darken the animal, just as I've done with the head. You can see how the head is much stronger. Well, so will the body be. So
Yeah,
there's a, and I think you can see what I mean when I love the background. I love doing it, but it was really, really hard. And anybody tackling this one, well done with them for even thinking about doing that background. Because
yeah. You can.
me and trees and our members don't go together very well.
Yeah. You can see the foundation of the dark areas. I can see where you're going to be darkening it because you've put
Mm.
those different colors in, and I can see where all of those shaded areas are going to be. So it's going to be really interesting to see you build
That's got to be
upon
done
those.
first, Steve. That's got to be done first. You can't do that afterwards. That's got to be done at the same time you put the light in. Normally, you think, well, you put the light in and then you put the dark over the top. That doesn't work so well. You've got to do is put those darker markings in, which is 233. That colour would have gone in, and then the grey 230, and the white, of course, would go alongside it, softening it.
Excellent.
But you can't put it in first. Well, you could. I could have got away with that, but I know that it works really well. And another thing on the right-hand side, you can see how that does not look right at all. And look how dark that background is. Now, that background is virtually finished. And see what I mean? That right-hand side of the animal has got to be darkened. Otherwise, it won't look right at all. And that means then the paw would come forward slightly. But I think you're going to we'll show this next week when we show the picture. And then we'll show or the next time we do, when I've finished the picture, we'll show it. And you can see what I'm talking about, how dramatic that's going to be. But already
Yeah,
it looks good, doesn't it? Without actually having those finishing bits in, but it's going to look stunning when I finished it.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I hope that's been interesting for everyone. Obviously, when you finish the picture, we'll do another snippet on that and show that finished picture so people can see just what final changes you made, final additions you made to that picture to give it that contrast and that depth. But some really good stuff in there. And obviously this will be, you're filming this, as you say, not, it's kind of one for you, kind of one to test your skills, but we also want to share it with everyone. So we
Hmm.
will put it up on our website for people to look at. And should anyone want to give it a go, you could try. I'm sure you would learn so much from doing this, because there are some really interesting techniques in there.
Hmm.
So yeah, thank you, Dad, so much. As I say, I think next week we will watch back the horse and bridle picture. There are some clips going up on social media people might have seen, just little snippets from the class, little interesting tidbits that were picked out. So if people want to watch the full class, the horse and bridle, then they can go onto our website and either buy that class as a one-off payment, or they can enroll in the membership and get access to all of your classes. And then that one is also included in that. So if anyone wants to find out any more, then just go over to colinbradleyart.com and you can find that course and give it a go if you want. Okay, lovely stuff, Dad. Well, I'm going to get back to this weekend in Cornwall, which is very nice and lovely. Hope you have a lovely day there too, Dad. I know it's really nice and warm where we both are, opposite ends of the country and different coasts. And we'll leave it there for this week. So thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley. Enjoy
Enjoy
your
your
week.
week.